Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the number one secret to growing your business. All right. You ready for it? Now, before we get started, it actually took me a long time to figure this out for myself. So I've had all kinds of businesses over the years. Really my first dive into entrepreneurship was a lemonade stand I had when I was 10, but that doesn't quite count. So really it was the law practice with my wife. And we knew nothing about growing a business, right? It was just this new adventure for us. I had just come off of being a partner at a law firm, and I had accomplished so much in my short time frame in law school and in just after graduating and the different jobs that I'd had, that we thought like, hey, Brad's a miracle worker. He can pull anything off. And that first year was an absolute slog. Oh, geez, it was the most miserable experience of our lives. Like we didn't get any customers and we just didn't know what was wrong. However, we eventually figured out what to do. And now before I kind of tell you what that thing was, fast forward a couple years, and my wife had just had our daughter, and it had knocked her out. She was basically bedridden for a year. It was really bad. She nearly died. The baby nearly died during delivery, but they both survived. They're both okay now. And we basically had to start from scratch because I had to take care of both of them, and I had to stop working more or less entirely in order to do so. She was the trial attorney for our law practice, and we just didn't she didn't want to go back to work. I don't blame her. The stress was killing her. So I had to go figure out how to make some money for us. And I decided to do coaching and consulting. And we decided that, small town Ohio wasn't really the best place for that kind of profession. So we moved to Las Vegas, and I got to Las Vegas. And when I was here, I knew nobody. I had no friends. I had no family. I had no network. I didn't reach out to any alumni associations to see if there was anybody here. I completely started from scratch. But before, let's say, I think it was about 2 months after I'd moved here, I was the president of a consulting firm, and I was dealing with businesses, really large businesses, and looking at business plans with, millions of dollars at stake. And it was the most fascinating experience of my life. And I really, really learned how to grow a business right then and there. But the truth is, I'd actually already known the lesson multiple times along the path, but it wasn't until it was staring me in the face and having to advise other people of what this secret was that I finally was able to learn myself and be able to apply it. And so as soon as I learned it, I applied it to the Gamerpreneur, and that's really how I was able to go from basically zero. No, it wasn't even basically, it was really zero. I had no money invested. I had junk equipment, for the purpose of simulating as a case study. I invited no friends or family or followers in to follow me at the beginning. And I started from scratch, and I applied this lesson. And in 1 year's time on Facebook, March 2020 to March 2021, I went over 110,000 followers. Okay. So here's the secret. Are you ready? You got to market yourself. Come on, how hard is this? I don't know what it was. I just it didn't click in my head. And maybe it just hasn't clicked in your head yet either. It's as simple as it possibly be. You are in the self-promotion game. And I just did an interview last week. I was interviewed, okay? And I'm looking at a couple more interviews coming up. And I know what the questions they are going to ask are. And it almost always comes to, how did you grow your following? How did you do this fascinating thing that everybody's trying to figure out how to do? And the truth is, I had screwed this up so many times in the past. The first couple times I was making info products. So I was making courses and books and whatever to teach people how to do something. I was so focused on, just tunnel vision on writing the best book I possibly could. And, making sure the graphics were as best as I could make them. And making the package and making the PowerPoint and making all of the stuff that went into the sale and the product itself, that I spent no time actually promoting it. So when it came time to start getting people to come in with these first few products, nobody showed up. The first product, nobody showed up. The second time I'd spent like $100 in ads and I got like 3 people to show up and they left 10 minutes into my presentation. That was fun. And then the next time I kind of really did it, I was presenting to real estate agents and I had about 3 people showed up and they did stay through the whole presentation, but nobody bought. And so what happened? Well, I'd only done like a week worth of marketing on that end. But at this point, looking back, I see if I had just gone a little bit longer or a little bit further, or pushed a little harder on the marketing. It's so much about the marketing and promotion and getting yourself out there. It doesn't matter what kind of business you have. It doesn't matter if you're a content creator or a streamer. It doesn't matter if you have an esports business or you're a consultant or you're a chiropractor. It just doesn't matter. Business is business is business is business. Okay? You have to understand that business is only 3 things. It's marketing, sales, fulfillment. That's it. Marketing, sales, fulfillment. If you're not doing one of those 3 things, you don't have a business that works. So if you're not doing any of those 3 things, then you're kind of in trouble. I see a lot of streamers and they're like, well, how does this apply to me? Well, if all you're doing is sitting there playing and not really promoting and not trying to sell anything, all your focus is on fulfillment. You're trying to make the customer happy and they just kind of wandered their way into your store and you're just like juggling and making them happy, but they're not buying anything. So you got to find a way to get them to buy. You ask them. Number 1 way to make a sale. Ask. Okay. So the number 1 way to grow your business is to market it. You actually have to put yourself out there and it may cost some money. It may cost a lot of time, but you have to do whatever it takes if you want to grow. That's how I grew my following. I marketed it. And people ask me like, how, I'm like, okay, other than the marketing, like you want the actual like specific thing I did. I took a picture that I made. It was my logo. And I took some copy that said, gamerpreneurs are people who like conquer the world or something like that. I wrote it back a whole year ago. I don't even remember what it says at this point, but I wrote some copy basically just saying, gamerpreneurs rule the world and, there was a button on Facebook that says like, and I just started marketing it to gamers, to streamers, to content creators, to anybody who's interested in packs, to like anybody who's interested in video games. Like I just started promoting it to gamers and they have self-selected themselves into my community. And it's actually really interesting because the past couple of weeks I've been kind of keeping tabs on asking my audience, how can I improve my content? And the number 1 feedback I'm getting is my content is fantastic. They're just not seeing it enough. And I'm like, well, I mean, I guess I can market more, but you also can like come to my page more often is one thing. The number 1 complaint is they're not seeing it enough. Like there's some people who are like, we used to love watching your podcast, but I just don't see it anymore. I guess that's on my end for not putting enough dollars into Facebook in order to make sure enough people are seeing it. But my audience is there and they self-selected themselves in. They wanted my content. And so this isn't buying likes. This isn't buying followers or subscribers. Do not do that. Okay, if you do that, you're probably going to get banned. 2, it's going to be very clear very quickly that they're bots and it's just no good. Okay. Just don't buy followers. Find the people who are interested in your type of content. Really create that brand and then market it. You have to market. That's the secret. Okay. On that note, I'm going to remind you all, organization is the enemy of sloth. All right. Organization. How do you market? There's all kinds of different ways to market. You can get on television if you want. Have you ever considered that? Like, a lot of content creators or streamers like, oh, you can't really get on TV. It's too hard. It is not hard to get on television. Years ago, I was at a National Speakers Association event. Okay, so it's a trade association or something for speakers, people who go in like colleges and corporations and on stages, and they teach people how to do stuff from stage. Okay, and the training I went to this one time was on association marketing. Now, the guy was saying that you really need to focus on association newsletters because every association has a newsletter, whether it's annual, monthly, weekly, it doesn't matter. The thing is, they're always looking for new content to publish because writing is hard. It's not really that hard in my personal opinion, but for many, many, many other people, writing is really hard. So if you can give somebody something that's already pre-written, that's applicable to their audience, that's interesting to them, you can get into an association newspaper. Same thing on television, though. They're constantly looking for new things to talk about. Have you ever turned on the local news every night and realized they never talk about the same thing ever? They're always talking about it. In fact, this is really cool. I had a guest of mine, months and months and months ago, almost a year ago. She was on, and she was just featured by NBC or MSNBC or one of the two. And she was featured, and all of a sudden my show started getting a ton more views because she got featured. And so, how did she get featured? She had a TikTok that, went off, and I don't know how anybody found her or whatever, but maybe she called them up. That's how I'd recommend it. Call them up and tell them about the unique thing that you have going on, the unique community that you have. And they'll be like, how is this relevant to our audience? And if you can find a way to make it relevant to their audience, then they're going to be willing to talk to you. Okay. So television, there's radio, there's magazines, there's billboards, okay. Then there's digital advertising, there's newsletter advertising. You can do email advertising. Maybe it's called a solo ad. Maybe there's a blog somewhere that has an email list. They have a newsletter that they've been getting people to subscribe to. Go to the guy or lady who's hosting it and say how much to email your list. And they may tell you, the gaming space, it's really weird. Kind of people are like, no, I don't let people touch my list, but that they'll get over that eventually. You have to market, figure out where you want to market, figure out how it's going to be relevant to the audience that you're marketing to, and then just do it. Stop hesitating, just pull the trigger and go for it. Beautiful. That's all I got for you today. Don't be just a gamer. Be a gamerpreneur.